Welcome to the Happy Fools podcast. I am your co-host Trevor, joined not as always. You know what? Joined as always by Nick Spratt because this is his fourth time here. I think
Or- Yeah,
fourth
I
time here.
appreciate it.
Alfredo's doing
That's
something.
that's my lucky number. So cheers to that.
Four.
hmm
You're gonna have to explain.
well, I was born on the 4th of July,
Oh well,
so my
there you go.
birthday's coming up here in a bit, and Brett Favre was my favorite fucking person of all time
Wow.
until he
Born.
retired. I was like, well, I don't like football anymore.
You might be the most American man I've ever met in my life. You love Brett Favre. You're born on the 4th of July. Goodness gracious. So
I tried to embrace it and not go too crazy with it as well.
Well, man, welcome back to your home. You've been on the road. You just got back from the Cosmic Summit. I'll let you tell us all about it. But first, did you drive? Did you fly? What'd you do?
Yeah, drove. My sister Riley and I drove from Louisville. Riley was running Randall's table, Randall Carlson's table, there with Jesse, his son, and Laura C. Clapp with who's our Randall's creative director, fucking handler, just unbelievably necessary person for that whole entourage. Um,
It's just a special breed of person, somebody who brings it all together, does all the things that need to be done so everyone else can relax.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, seriously, her and Brad are like the glue to that whole thing, or have
well,
been for a very long time.
for those who don't know what Cosmic Summit is, which is probably no one, what is it? And was this your second time, third time?
Second time. So, the Cosmic Summit is where the truth comes to party.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. It is a gathering of truth seekers that are viewed as heretics to the mainstream cult, if
Well,
you
can,
will.
can we just jump right in on that? Because I actually was listening to the last Grimerica episode that they published, which was about Atlantis.
Yeah.
I only got through like the first 20 minutes of them talking, and then I just hopped on here with you. But Graham, who I know you just spoke to them about an hour ago, but
Yep.
Graham was talking about an individual at the Cosmic Summit who is maybe more of like a mainstream archaeologist who is like maybe debating a lot in the talks or that I was kind of surprised by that. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Um,
Like what were
when
people pushing back?
when did this air?
Oh,
Before the
the
summit?
episode? The episode?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
episode came out. Let me get my handy dandy
Because there
rectangle of
was
knowledge.
a spat during the Atlantis debate
It
from
was I think it
somebody
was
I did
Atlantis
not.
related.
Okay, well, it happened on Monday.
Yeah, so
Um,
this episode posted 20 hours ago, I guess. So
okay, so yes, that would have been. I'm pretty sure that was Dr. Stephen Collins,
okay.
who what blew my mind
I'm gonna pull them up on
is
ResearchGate while you talk.
yeah, I want to make sure that that was him.
Yeah, just assume everything is alleged. I don't want to get in trouble for slander.
Yeah, well, he was. Oh God, it's not even. Maybe that's the wrong name. No, that's yeah, it's Stephen Collins. He just doesn't have a great picture. Older guy with kind of a friar tuck, balding white
Hey,
halo around
hey,
his hair.
take it easy on
Hey, he
us
looked
about
great.
Friar
No, he
Tuck
looked great.
hair.
Hey, look, I'm getting it too, man. It's coming.
It's coming for us all. So you said
But no,
Stephen
he
Collins, University of
yeah.
Washington. Does that sound right?
Uh, look up Stephen Collins, Sodom
What?
at the risk of.
What are you trying to do to me? Is that a
So
university? What?
he was part of the team that discovered the city of Sodom and
Oh,
Gomorrah.
okay.
And
Okay.
it's legit. That's a crazy story. They determined that so they found Sodom and they figured out what happened to it, and they figured out that it was very likely struck by a plasma wave, and that's what caused the destruction. That was the fire from God,
Oh,
right? And they found this like hard evidence of vitrified clay pottery and a um, vaporized skeleton that was chopped off from the waist up because it was they were standing on like a little wall, right, that was blocking their legs, and this wave came down from whatever direction, and it just blasted off their whole torso, and pretty interesting stuff.
good Lord.
But
Very, yeah.
in any case, during the or after the Atlantis debate, the esteemed doctor came up with a list of various just things he was shotgunning out, all critiques, and it wasn't nice. Um,
How
First of all,
so? How so?
he trashed Plato, the man, as it was almost like he thought that we in the sphere of the Atlantis debate were trying to claim that Plato was an archaeologist. And he was like, first of all, archaeology was invented in whatever the 1800s, and it wasn't even a thing until the 1800s. And at one point, he was like, the archaeology as a science, and I was in the crowd and I interrupted. I was like, archaeology is not a science, and I got a bunch of applause from the crowd that was there too.
Oh,
Um,
Graham mentioned someone yelling that out loud in the last episode. It was you.
yeah. Yeah, that was me. That was me. Well, he came up just guns blazing, and this is the fucking guy who has been shit on by mainstream archaeology his entire career.
Right.
So it was really confusing to me why he was going after people that were trying to prove the Atlantis story, which essentially is proving the Bible, because that's it's the same thing. That's what they're talking about. The time of Noah, the pre-Diluvian civilization. So it's like, come on, man.
Okay, so I assume you're mentioning the Bible thing because he works at a religious university.
I don't even know that for sure, but he is
I'll
the
tell you. I'll tell
biblical
you.
archaeologist.
He works at Veritas
Mm,
International University. He's
true.
the director of the archaeology program, and these guys are right down the street from me. I'd never heard of them, but their motto is proclaiming the gospel, equipping the saints, defending the faith. That's interesting. Yeah, I see what you mean. Now, within I would
Doesn't
say
make sense.
kind of this like free thinker community, you get people of all different belief systems. Do you think he's coming at this? Is he attacking it from a religious perspective? It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't contradict his beliefs. It sounds like he might really believe that the theories are flawed and he just isn't investigating. I mean, he went to Cosmic Summit. He must know the theories. It just seems like to get on a
Yeah,
plane.
and
Yeah.
I mean, the guy presented at the Cosmic Summit last year. I don't think.
Oh, really?
Oh shit, no, he presented this year.
He
Yeah, he was there
was a,
last year too.
he was a
Literally
speaker.
presented this year on Sodom.
Fascinating. I
And
love
I
intercollegial
don't know, man.
smackdowns.
Well,
So
maybe you could go ask him if he's right down the street from you.
yeah, I'll email him say, hey, I want to interview
Yeah,
you.
like, what's the smell of your beef, man?
Yeah, well, I was just curious if he had like a coherent argument. It sounds like no. He sounds like he was just being critical. Who was speaking? Who was he interrupting?
It was so the panel, the Atlantis debate panel was it was Graham. Graham was up there. It was Danny Hillman Nadawajaja, who is the geoscientist, archaeologist, geoarchaeologist, if you will, who has been the most forefront researcher on Gunung Padang in Indonesia, the pyramid down there. Dan Richards, Debunker Dan,
Mhm.
uh, David Stig Hansen, um, Joanne Ballard had an appearance, and then Michael Donnellan, who was the guy that made the Atlantica documentary. I don't know if you heard about that.
Mhm.
That's that's a big one. I mean, they found it. So,
Well, is that what you? I think that's what you're here to talk about. So I'll stop interrupting you. You can
well, I
take it wherever you want to go.
just to put a button on that last bit. Yeah, they were up there. It was kind of a debate. It was more like I don't know. The host, the moderator of that debate was supposed to be the girl from Nerdrotic, but she had to drop out for some reason. So George Howard curated it or moderated it rather, and I don't think he realized that the presentations were supposed to be limited to 10 minutes and then the rest of it was supposed to be open discussion and like real debate. So what ended up happening was like all of the speakers except for a couple of them ended up giving these really long presentations very often of things that they had already presented on the prior day. So a lot of us sitting in the crowd were like, we saw this yesterday and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
eventually, so I had to leave and get and pack up the hotel room. But when I left, apparently Joanne Ballard and Michael Donnellan, she like went after him. She tried to like character assassinate him, and she's
Wait,
like,
who tried to a character assassinate who? Sorry, I'm keeping up, trying to keep up.
so Dr. Joanne Ballard. She's, I believe, a geologist. She's first time I heard of her, she was on the Snakes podcast talking about lake cores. So
Okay.
taking cores of lakes to find impact proxies, basically, but all
And
kinds of other
this
stuff.
is in the same session as,
Yes.
okay,
This is during the Atlantis debate.
got it.
Her presentation was on it was on Atlantis in Africa and the Eye of the Sahara,
Okay.
which I don't know how she went from lake cores to Atlantis. That's a whole different
I mean,
discussion, but
it's still an interesting heterodox idea, so fine. But
sure.
she was doing ad hominem attacks, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
I wasn't there, but I heard it got nasty, and
So
people I
weird.
talked to lost respect for her when because she did this, but she went after, I guess, went after Michael Donnellan, who is the guy that he's not a scientist, he's just kind of like me, who's just like, I want to go find fucking Atlantis. So he got a team together and made friends, and they did it, and that's
I'm fascinated by this, like as an outsider looking in, because when I go to conferences, this doesn't happen, but I hear about it happening in other fields, like in the social sciences and
right.
archaeology.
Right.
And so it
Yeah,
is
the ones
funny.
that are like less science. Right.
Well, I was gonna say it's funny, like you guys are like a heterodox group, but you're facing a lot of the same challenges that it sounds like more
Yeah,
mainstream
absolutely.
scientific conferences face, which is like these
Yeah, well,
public
the
arguments and stuff.
the problem is, I mean, it's not a problem. It's healthy. It's fine. It's just that we're not. It's not a hard science. You can't actually. You can all you can do is observe and then speculate. You
Yeah,
can't really test. Like you can take samples and test things and make like rational deductions from those tests. But really, at the end of the day, all of archaeology, all of history is just assumptions,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
We don't actually know. People can lie when they write a book that says that this is how history went, right? So it's a best guess kind of thing. And when people get so passionate and so rigid about defending the narrative or the consensus as they might view it, it just it really just turns me off, and it's so inauthentic. It's like they have this like iron mask on and it's glued to their face and it's just never gonna come off.
It feels,
So
yeah, it feels very emotional. It's also kind of disappointing considering it sounds like both of these sort of character attacks were coming from fellow heterodox thinkers, you know?
yeah, and it was really disheartening to see that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would have honestly it would have been better if there wasn't a debate amongst the heterodox thinkers. I think it would have been better if it was at least on Atlantis, because pretty much what we end up with is when you get to the bottom of what Plato says, there's some principles you land on. One is that it was an empire. So empires have multiple colonies, multiple cities, different locations where they could have been. So
Right.
when we find evidence for a pre-Diluvian civilization, Atlantis, in one place, that's not the end of the story, right?
Sure.
There's
Right.
more to be found. And we don't need to be arguing over where it was. That's a rabbit hole that you're never going to find the bottom of because it was in multiple areas. So stop arguing about it.
Yeah, there's always multiple ways to interpret a particular finding. It is interesting though because like the falling in love with the hypothesis usually happens when you're desperately competing for funding. I
Right.
it does happen in my line of work too. It's like you want to be right
Yeah.
to the point where some people go as far to commit like fraud and things to support
Right.
their position, you know? But this is I mean,
No one's
no one's competing for. You're competing for public interest, I guess. Like
sure.
you might have a YouTube channel or something, and maybe, but it's it just seems strange to me how
But the
married.
thing about that is if you're exposed of fraud on the internet, you'll be
Yeah,
eaten alive.
yeah. The risk reward ratio does not seem
Right.
good.
And there's really no financial reward to it. I mean, I met at least a dozen of these communicators this weekend. So the summit is a place, and this is what George would say if you asked him, George Howard that puts on the summit. He would say that the Cosmic Summit is a place to host the hardcore scientists as well as the communicators that can and the speculators, right? So they take the hardcore scientists can only speculate so far. They have to be phenomenological as
Yeah,
much as they possibly can to stay within the realms of their field, right? They have to stay siloed because that's how science is these days. I would like to see that change, but the speculators and the communicators take that information and then connect it multidisciplinarily. So that's why Randall's so amazing at what he does, is because he takes mega flood geology, catastrophism, uh, impact, all this stuff, and puts it in astrology and the stars and the symbols and the ancient whole everything, and puts it
yeah.
all
He's
together
able to
into
connect a lot of dots. I love.
cosmography. Right.
Yeah,
So these guys aren't, and like I said, I met a bunch of these dudes. They aren't rich. You know,
right.
they're
Researchers rarely are.
yeah, right. They're even the guys that are writing books and stuff. I mean, they're hustling, man. They're
Yeah,
trying to sell their merch like fucking Scott Walter and Tim Hogan. They're trying to sell their stuff, right? So it's not like they're not in it for the money. They're just doing it. That stuff is like keeping them afloat, you know. And it's really what I get the most sense of is the passion, first of all, and the sacrifice to have a career and have all the money and stuff so that you can just get the information out and share it with the world because that's disclosure and it's happening. So anyways,
so
oh
on that theme, speaking of disclosure, and it's happening. What would you say was your biggest takeaway? What blew your mind the most from this year's Cosmic Summit?
number one was the discovery of what I can't imagine what else it would be is a colony of a pre-Diluvian civilization,
Yeah, buddy.
Atlantis.
Yeah, buddy. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay, so how this all unfolded is Michael Donnellan got, I think this is pretty much how the story goes. He got linked up with, and so he's been living in Spain his entire life. He knows Spanish. He's an American guy, but he knows Spanish. He knows Italian, a bunch of different languages. He was an animator, and then he fell in with some people that were divers, and they started doing treasure hunting. And then he linked up with this guy named Timothy Akers, I
Okay.
believe it's Timothy Akers, who's uh, Google Maps archaeologist, I guess, is kind of
Oh,
how he
that's cool.
was like a satellite archaeologist. And this took off during COVID when people were like unable to actually go out in the field or whatever. And they ended up finding a bunch of stuff and LiDAR and on satellite surveys. And um,
Well, yeah,
Timothy Akers
that's cool. I
found,
mean, look at this. Sorry to just briefly
no,
interrupt
go.
you,
Good.
but I mean, look what they did with these Capella satellites with the the pyramids. It's pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
the idea of
Oh, yeah.
satellite archaeology, that sounds like
Right.
the next
Well,
frontier. Yeah.
so the Caffrey project, they were there too, and they
Oh,
had And I mean, side tangent, in my mind, they validated this technology because um, they showed SAR scans of I believe it was the Mosel Dam.
Okay.
At the dam up in maybe not the Mosel Dam, but the dam up close to the Nile. There's a tunnel inside of this dam that's like a maintenance tunnel. There's generators, there's turbines, and in the scan of this thing, you can see it very clearly, and it matches up exactly like the shape, even the shape of the voids in the scan itself match up with the cross section of the diagram of this generator and the tunnel.
Pretty tough to argue with that. I mean, obviously that was the major criticism of their work is that they need to do a scan of a known structure to
Yes.
compare. And
Yes.
sounds
And
like
they
sounds like they
talked
did.
about that.
Very cool.
They talked about it, but they hadn't, it would have served them much better to present that information in the initial press release. Um, But, you know, PR is PR, right? It
Yeah.
generated a lot of controversy. And I think part of the strategy there was maybe it wasn't strategy at all, but they leaked they didn't leak it. They gave it to Trevor Grassi, who was there and we hung out a bunch and they gave it to him and he posted it on the internet. You let the internet go after it, shoot all the holes in it, figure out what you need to prove to the world, and then you come back and say, okay, you critiqued about this. Let's make sure we have rebuttals for all of those things. And apparently, during the presentation, he seemed to cover all the bases.
Cool. Very cool.
So, anyways, we can come back to that later, maybe. Um, so Tim Akers, I believe, he is perusing the satellite imagery available to him in Spain, and he finds these structures off of the coast of Spain. I don't remember exactly which city, but what they turned out to be are old Roman fishing corrals.
Okay.
So there are these big rock walls that are like wave breaks, but they're built all the way out into the ocean that probably go, I don't know, a couple hundred meters maybe. Um, and you can only see it when the tide is very low. Turns out these rock walls are built upon older structures, and it's really
Nice.
hard to see that because it's all under the ocean. And so there's footage of them walking out onto these like rock platforms that have been eroding by the sea for, eons and eons. And clearly there's some traces of something that used to be there. So at some point they decide to go scuba diving out further into the sea there, and sure enough, they find these walls, like stone walls that are pretty dilapidated and destroyed, and they they're looking at their depth and they're 70 feet beneath the ocean. They're 5 kilometers out from the coast, 5 kilometers, 70 feet down, finding sunken ruins. The last time that area was exposed subaerially, like to the air, was most likely, I mean, like without a whole lot of hesitation, I would say it's during the last ice age when sea level was much, much lower.
Wow.
And then they come up from the dive and they scan. They do a side scan sonar of a pretty large swath of this whole area. And sure as shit, it's a ringed complex. It's a destroyed, ringed structure that apparently matches the dimensions of Plato's Atlantis to a T.
So wow. So that was one of the major criticisms with the Eye of the Sahara, right? Is that the Eye of the Sahara is just way
Yeah.
too big, right?
Yeah. It's like 20 miles wide. It's way too big.
Do you have any, sorry if you alluded to it, but do you have any like more info about where this is? Are we talking like Straits of Gibraltar, south near
Um,
Definitely Atlantic, not Mediterranean, I assume.
so let me look at some of the pictures that he sent me, that Michael sent me. If I can tell.
I don't mean to make you do a
No,
research
that's
project
fine.
in real time, but I'm gonna be curious. I pulled up Google Earth while you were talking. I haven't found Atlantis yet.
Yeah, it might be a little tough to find because it's supposed to be
You should be able
buried
to.
in, let's see, share. Okay,
Oh,
so
cool. Oh, so right off the coast there.
yeah, yeah. So this is the corral. This is one of the corrals, and I believe it's like out here. So that's my. This is just these are some shots from the documentary, but you can see all these structures. This is all rock, and see these strand lines here, these longitudinal
Mm-hmm.
straight lines. And if you follow the coast, you can probably tell here's where the Gulf starts to bend to the west. So we're looking north here, I believe. Um,
That makes
well,
sense because
this is over here though too. So yeah, I guess I'm not into. I
there's
don't.
not
I don't
there's
believe
not
they
a whole
actually.
there's not a whole lot of Spain that actually is, on the Atlantic Ocean because you got Portugal right there, but it could be kind of like down south by the Gibraltar area or the north shore
I
of
believe it's to the north of Gibraltar of the Straits. So,
maybe Cadiz. I'm just making stuff
yeah, I
up.
mean it's the Sea it's the Gulf of Cadiz,
Oh,
Cadiz.
okay. Okay.
That's what this whole Gulf is called, you know.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
boom, got it. Okay, I get it now.
there was Timothy Akers there. I don't know this WhatsApp thing is that's Tim Akers. And sadly he passed away while they were filming this. He was
Ah,
diagnosed with cancer. So there was kind of a somber moment there.
yeah.
Satellite archaeologist, there you go.
Satellite archaeologist. Wow.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
kind of archaeology.
Fucking
I
A,
don't
right?
like flying around too much.
Oh, we still got to get you over there to see some of those star holes.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to get me some tickets to Spain, I'll go. Don't get me wrong. Uh, Man, okay. Well, this is exciting. So we have a ring complex that the last time it was exposed to air, meaning the last time someone could have constructed it, was in the last ice age, aka
Yeah.
pre-diluvian, antediluvian.
Yes. And like I said, at that depth and that location, it couldn't be anything else. There is no known or even hypothesized lost culture that existed in that area. I mean, not that I know of, and I think if there was, we would know about it, at least in the history books. Um, it's not to say that there are probably cities out there that we don't even know exist because all of their records were destroyed in the burning of Alexandria or whatever. But even then, at that depth, in that location, in that orientation, they found it, man. Now, maybe it's not actually it. And here's where I'm not sure about yet but I think talking to Michael, I think we're probably on the same page. The debate over Atlantis, the real debate amongst the heterodox folks is where was the actual capital city? Where was the
Mhm.
island? Where was the continent, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So yeah, that looks like it could be.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just so for
Oh,
people who watch and they could maybe try to get an idea. So Cadiz is, yeah, it's facing west right by Gibraltar, a little north of Gibraltar,
mhm.
like you said. And so you said Gulf. So I'm assuming or Bay.
Yeah,
Sorry, this is the Bay
that's
of Cadiz,
you might be able to even see the um those
right here.
the walls.
No
Yeah, zoom in.
way. Oh, are you talking about over here? No, you're talking about down here, right?
No, so you might be able to actually see it on, I guarantee you'd be able to see it on NOAA's bat bathymetry viewer. I haven't checked it yet. It's been kind of a wild ride over the past couple of days getting reintegrated into normal regular life. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you looked at a bathymetry map, you'd probably be able to see it.
So somewhere on this screen we're talking.
Potentially, yeah. So the thing is that Cadiz is Gades, Gades. That is literally where Plato said that Atlantis was or had a colony,
Wait,
at the very
explain
least.
explain that for me as a neophyte who's new to this. What did Plato say about
He
Cadiz?
said, oh gosh, I don't know if I could tell you exactly, but he
Well, you
basically
don't have
said,
to.
so Gades was one of the sons. I hope I'm not butchering this. I should know better. Gades was one of the sons, and there was and this is Cadiz, Cadiz, is named after that. That's a passing of the language. Um,
No, that's
that almost looked
fascinating.
like that fort he was standing next to.
I noticed this like a line in the water. I was trying to figure out what that was, but um, okay, so that seems like a unbelievable coincidence.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you read Timaeus and Critias, and he tells you exactly where it is. There doesn't have to be this much of a debate about it. Um, but that's where so so Gades refers to an ancient city, modern Cadiz in southern Spain. It was a Phoenician settlement and in classical geography marked one of the far western points of the known world. In Plato's dialogues, particularly when describing Atlantis, Gades is used as it's Gades, sorry, for the Spanish speakers out there. Gades is used as a geographic reference point to explain how far Atlantis extended or where it was situated in relation to the known Mediterranean world. Um, so he says, as far Plato describes Atlantis as having rule over many parts of the world, including as far as Egypt and Tyrrhenia, and of course Gades beyond the pillars of Heracles.
Straight to
So,
Gibraltar,
yes,
right
correct.
there. Boom.
Yes. So,
Wow. That's that's fascinating.
yeah, it's right there.
So
Uh,
is it really this easy? Did we just find Atlantis? Not we, them. That's amazing.
we, I mean, really, I think they did. I think they found part of it. Yeah, part of it, and um.
So
My critique,
but the question is, what's the capital city? I get that. That makes sense. Okay.
well, there's at least one thing, and I thought there were two things, but there's at least one thing that doesn't track, which
Okay.
is the presence of mountains and lofty places, as well as just it being an island at all, because it's not an island
Right.
right across so right here, this is where I would point my magic wand at if I had one chance to say here it is. Um,
What's a
Plato
much?
says there are lots of island colonies and the empire stretched very far. So yeah, but it does appear that this team has found the first uh, real, probably most easily verifiable proof of a pre-Diluvian settlement.
And so the key is that we found structures um somewhere that would not be available for construction in the
Yeah.
past 10, 11,000 years.
Yeah, underwater concrete is a relatively modern invention. Underwater construction at all is relatively modern. So I don't I don't think anybody was out there lugging rocks to the bottom of the ocean, building a wall, you know.
Yeah, for what purpose? How big is this this complex? You said it's ringed.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive right off the bat. Let's
Yeah,
see.
I mean uh there was a bit um in the documentary that overlaid Plato's dimensions of the ring city. Um
No way.
and
Very
it matches. So I can just pull that up really quickly. Um Temple of Poseidon was a stadia long, so 607 feet. Um Central Island was 5 stadia, so about a little over a half mile. The first ring of water was 1 stade, so 185 meters. First ring of land was 2 stadia, 370 meters. Second ring of water, 370 meters. Second ring of land, 555 meters. So I mean, it's pretty big. I guess the outer ring, connected to the sea via a channel 9 kilometers long. So the total diameter of the city, all in all, 2.6 miles. Now, I
that's
only
that's
saw
the
what
city.
was presented. So pretty big though. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're so from the coast to 5 miles out, I'm assuming the 5 mile or the 5 kilometer extent is the most proximal edge of what they scanned. So that plus minus 2.6 miles, you're going to have a buffer zone between the other edge, the distal edge, and the coast. And so there's some space in there where all these other ruins were found. And I was talking to him earlier, and he said that they found stuff in between the walls as well. And the other cool thing is that the outer ring, so all of the rings, like if you're imagine a tsunami coming from the Azores
Mhm.
and hitting the outer wall and then reducing in intensity on the inner walls, you can see that playing out in the
Mm.
scans. So the outer rings are more destroyed. The outer ring is more damaged, and it's like it protected the inner ring. And then so as you go up, each ring is like less destroyed, and it's even caved inwards as if it were hit by a wave at some point.
I really appreciate your yours and Randall's and everybody's desire to just know. And even though I would say you're somewhat invested in, you know, the Azores as a location, when you find new evidence, you treat it as new evidence. You don't say, well, that
Yep.
can't be true because I already know the answer. However, ultimately that I mean, the goal is to get the truth, and it may be that both are a part of this empire
Yep.
question. So Plato is reporting this information that he got from his great uncle Solon, or something like that.
Yep.
And Solon got this information from someone at like a temple in Egypt, a long time
Yes.
ago, right? Like 3,000 years or 4,000 years ago, something. 3,000,
Uh,
2,500 or back there.
600 BC.
Okay. Okay. So 2,600 or 25. Yeah. So the the person who gave this information to Solon in Plato's account, does he call this ringed complex the capital of this city, this empire, the city, or does he just describe
Yes, I believe he does.
he calls it the capital? Okay.
Yes.
And it could be like a standard way that these builders built
Absolutely.
cities near the
Absolutely.
water, right? Yeah.
Yes. And everybody I talked to about this, I hammer the shit out of that point
Yeah.
because it's very important.
Right.
Okay. All of us in this circle are very interested in this idea of sacred geometry being used in the construction of important places. So you use the sacred geometric principles to lay out your civilization so that above may be manifest below, right?
Well, and to your
You
point,
can use, go
I
ahead.
love that idea, but to your point, it could also be
Yeah,
practical. You were just a second
totally.
ago describing kind of a practical rationale for why a city may be
Exactly.
built like this. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And to that point, even further, if the Egyptian history goes back to Zep Tepi, which was about 36,450 BC, that's the beginning of their timeline, where they say, they came from this high culture that Plato later called Atlantis. They would have experienced multiple cataclysms, multiple deluges. And in fact, in the Timaeus and Critias, I don't know which one exactly, this Egyptian priest states very clearly that the world has seen many deluges. Humankind has seen many deluges, many cataclysms. This is one of them.
Mm.
So a civilization that started in, 40,000 years ago, roughly, would have and was successful in surviving all the way up until the Younger Dryas, they would have learned quite a lot. And so they would have learned how to protect their city against a fucking tsunami by building concentrically ringed structured cities.
Right.
And guess what? We're not gonna survive when that happens.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we don't have that kind of stuff built in. And even today, it's just a modern analog. Where do you live? You live in Redland, so I live in Louisville. Um, some other friends of ours live in other cities. Have you ever been to those cities? You probably have. I've been to other cities. They all look remarkably similar,
Right. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
across the world. So, why would we assume that they didn't build more than one of these ring cities?
Yeah, of course. We even have common language that's pretty applicable to most cities. We got a downtown with the main street, and we've got suburbs and urban. Like, yeah, it just there's a natural way now. And if we were a little bit, maybe more dedicated to, I don't know, I get the sense that ancient people were more preoccupied with cataclysm than we are for some reason. Probably just because of the architecture that's survived. It's incredible, right? Cyclopean stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so it does seem like they'd be even more likely to have similar building
Yeah.
styles between their cities than even we would
Well,
be.
I mean, I could take that comment and just run to the stars with it.
Yeah.
They knew these cyclical interactions. My cat is going after a raccoon outside. They knew about these cycles of catastrophe because they track the stars, and the stars tell you when these things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's an artifact. I don't even know if I call it an artifact. It's a direct cause. No one's put this forth as a mainstream. Well, I'm sure I know people have, but this is going to sound probably weird, but I just talked about this on Grammarica as well, but
Yeah. Don't give them exclusives that you're not going to
no,
give
no,
me.
no, no.
Come on,
I'm
tell
not
me.
going to, I promise. Um, I remember watching the Y Files like a year
Great
or
show.
so ago. Yes. And he brought up John Nelson.
Okay.
John Nelson. Have you ever heard of John Nelson? He was a RCA electrical engineer.
Okay.
Uh, World War II, the Army hired him to try to figure out why they were having shortwave radio blackouts. They thought it was something to do with the sun.
Okay.
And they wanted him to study it so that they could try to predict it, so that they could, one, use that as a weapon. So do critical
Yeah.
operations during radio blackouts where they couldn't be listened in on. But two, just to know when they were going to happen. And he ended up figuring some things out that was predictable up to 90% of the
Mhm.
time. So he was he's doing this research, he's digging into it, and he's like, he comes up with this report and he's like, yes, it absolutely is related to solar activity, to sunspots. But what was even more predictive was what was causing those sunspots. And what he found was that certain alignments of the
Mhm.
planets in our solar system, 0 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees, 180 degrees, specifically between Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and Mercury, I believe.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, and Mercury preceded radio disturbances. So the
Well,
alignment of these planets were causing the sun to react more violently.
I mean, someone with a bit of, again, Kyle kept saying he hated this word, but a bit of open-mindedness and critical thinking would say, well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, look how our satellite, the moon, affects processes here on Earth. The position of the moon
Totally.
affects a lot of things, right? Well, Jupiter,
Totally.
Jupiter is a moon of the sun, right? Earth is a
Yeah.
moon of the sun. Mercury is a moon of the sun. So, of course, there it would affect the way fusion and fission and whatever occur in the sun. And
Yeah.
yeah, that just makes sense. Okay, very cool.
Right. Go even further.
Okay.
What is it that they're actually doing? What are the planets? They're presumably they're emanating an electromagnetic field, just like we are, right? What is that? What's happening that's causing the planetary alignment to affect the nuclear fission and fusion that's happening in the sun?
Now,
Magnetism, some
my
sort of magnetism, probably, right?
I would have thought gravity, so it's interesting. But yeah, it could, yeah, EM, gravity, yeah, for sure. Could be
Okay.
anything. Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
some
Some
phenomena
force.
of
Yeah.
reality, right?
Yeah.
Um, what are we also affected by?
Yeah. Yeah.
Electromagnetism and gravity.
Yeah.
That's everything, right? The
Yeah.
weak and strong force that holds everything together. So, my personal opinion is that Mr. John Nelson proved astrology with that study.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, I there is a degree to which I agree with you. Like now, the ability of a particular newspaper to write a very generic
Yes, of
and vague
course, of course.
thing that
The interpretation and what it
right,
means,
right,
that's the thing
right.
where it's like, okay, you can not have my money, thank you.
But yes,
As a phenomenon,
it's
it,
reasonable to think that certain forces could act on you in the womb. Man, I'm open
yeah,
minded to all that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Now,
So,
whether it makes you a particularly like vengeful lover, and you're a
right,
Scorpio, I don't know,
right.
but so who
Yeah.
knows? Something
Yeah,
could,
well, I mean, when astrology is the oldest science. I
right?
mean,
Yeah,
it really is the thing we've been studying for the longest time. So, yeah, we should know more about it than we do. And hey, guess what?
they did.
The richest, most elite people who have ever existed, you know
Yeah,
what JP Morgan was walking around with back in the day?
tell me, tell me.
A timepiece that was an astrological clock. They all believe in that shit, man.
Well,
They're all
I
occultists
I
that
believe it. I mean, what
know astrology.
that cool mechanism that was found at the bottom of the ocean, the Antikythera mechanism, that
Yes,
was all about that. I
yes.
mean, this is clearly, I have a tendency to believe things don't stay this important and relevant to a culture for this long if it's not useful in some way. Now,
Totally.
I know archaeologists kind of, and not just archaeologists, a lot of people tend to kind of dismiss this stuff and that we are like, that there's been this linear increase in knowledge and we are the most rational and empirical people who've ever lived, but I don't really buy that. I'm not sure I believe that. Can I go back to something about the site you were describing
Yeah.
a few minutes ago? So you mentioned something that, of course, I noticed. I want to circle back to. You mentioned things being built on top of this older uh, architecture. That's
Yes.
obviously like a consistent theme in all the
Yes.
documentaries, Machu Picchu, all these places where you see this incredible like interlocking stone
Yes.
that just
Yes.
boggles the
Build
mind.
build upon what you conquer or find.
Right. And then you have this like brick and mortar, or, stone mortar construction on top, and we assume the whole thing's built by the same people, which is nuts, right?
Yeah.
Um, Anyone who's ever built something in their backyard knows you don't like have insanely beautiful masonry in one spot and then go to like gravel and mortar in another spot.
Yeah.
I mean, not in such a predictable linear pattern, right? Maybe you screw up here or there, but um, is that the kind of thing we see at this site? Do we know the construction style? Do we know anything about what it is?
I don't know
Yeah.
that.
More to
I
come.
presume there is more to come. I'll just say that what we saw at the summit was the premiere of a supercut, if you will, in a single documentary from a larger three-part series.
Okay.
So there is a lot more. And of the boxes that I would say Plato talks about describing Atlantis by, maybe what we saw checks 50% of them, 75% of them. And in the three-part series that hopefully they find a distributor to get this thing out, I'm told they will be checking more of those boxes. So, yeah, more to come for sure. So,
Man, it's pretty fascinating that Plato mentions that location by name as being part of their empire,
yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a it's a city in their empire. Totally reasonable. It doesn't have to be the capital. That's a very cool idea.
Yeah, and another little point on Plato, people talk about the telephone game
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
I'd like to push back on that a little bit though.
Yeah.
Okay. So the history is that Solon goes to Egypt and to Sais and then comes back and writes a manuscript based on what he learned. That manuscript basically sat untouched until Plato. So 240 years later, Plato sends his students from the academy, Critias and Timaeus, to locate this manuscript, and they report back the essentially what is believed is the direct translation or the direct contents of Solon's manuscript to Plato, who then writes Critias and Timaeus. That is currently an original document. It hasn't changed. It has been translated, yes, but it wasn't like an oral tradition that was passed down 1,000 times
Right.
over multiple generations. It was maybe passed down once or twice um, over those generations through the various familial connections. So I don't think the telephone game thing really applies there.
The telephone game thing, I think it speaks to the the just a tiny amount of seriousness modern culture places on writing down knowledge. Like
Yeah.
when you look at another example, like the Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's like
Mhm.
how many thousand years old? I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's identical to our current Isaiah scroll today,
Mhm.
so people can clearly maintain accurate written records, even oral tradition. I mean, you're saying it's not, I agree. I'm just saying, but even oral traditions can
Yeah,
be really
totally.
accurate. So yeah, it's a point, the telephone game, like, okay, fair enough, but I don't place much weight on it either.
Yep.
So
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I mean that was Atlantis. I don't know how much more time do you have? I'm good, but
as
there's
much as you want, hey, you just broke you solved Atlantis in 20 minutes. Congratulations, man.
we fucking did it.
Thanks for
We
bringing
did it. All right.
the people.
Mystery solved. Next mystery.
Time to move on. Well,
I
oh, go ahead.
well, so just to finish close up on that bit about the alignments, okay?
Yeah.
So we went micro after talking about the planetary alignments. Let's go macro, all right?
Yeah.
So last night I was on a class with Ed Nightingale, who's the author of the Giza template.
Okay,
I might have told you about this, but he's teaching us the template, which is reverse engineering and reconstructing the architectural design of the Giza Plateau as it relates to the stars, as it relates to both a plan view, top-down vision of the plateau itself, to a elevation view looking at the Great Pyramid and the Khafre.
that's cool.
When you overlay all of these images, there are alignments. Right now we're on these celestial alignments. And what it basically boils down to is that Giza is a repository of calendar data that has been encoded into its construction. Um, and we're currently on the celestial part, and it's probably the most difficult section for me to grasp because there's so many different alignments. He's got Google Earth that's just a rat's nest of different lines and things pointing around and overlaid in Stellarium and all this. It's hard, and part of what we're doing is trying to make it more presentable. But
To
last
what?
night,
Oh, go ahead.
hmm, no, no, what's your
I,
question?
I was just gonna say, like, to what end do you suppose? Like recording important dates or something? Like what type of
It's a,
calendar
it's a
data?
warning.
Oh,
It's a warning.
okay.
Is it it is encoded with information that will help us prevent our own extinction. What more could you want as a species, right?
There's this almost like subtext in some of the religious narratives, like the biblical narrative. And maybe this is just me trying to like place extra mystery on stuff, but it's almost it's almost like there was this effort to survive something they knew was coming,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're building these I mean these incredible stone walls that interlock and blah 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 blah, and they're 80 tons or 100 tons. It's like there is, and you even kind of like you even kind of read that in the Bible that people survived this cataclysm, that maybe weren't they that
Mm-hmm.
whoever, whatever you believe, didn't want to survive, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like there is this effort to survive this cataclysm.
Yeah.
And so I guess it makes sense that they might also try to warn future uh,
Oh.
people about this.
Oh, well, because they didn't survive. I mean, the last civilization, I mean, they kind of did, you know. We have
I was going to say it
the
depends what
seven
you believe,
stages.
because there's this thought process that these people came from the sea and helped the civilizations rebuild.
Right. And is the thought that I had before was that yeah, they did survive. A very small population of them survived, and they're still running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
again, I mean that's Genesis 6. There's this there were Nephilim in those days and there still are, you know.
right.
So
Right. Yeah. That and it's funny, I came to that idea after watching the movie 10,000 BC. Did you ever see that?
no, but I remember the name of it. But no, okay, what
Yeah, it was kind of corny. It really was, but there was this part, and so there it takes place in 10,000 BC, and the main characters are these kind of like hunter-gatherer tribes people, and they're all speaking English, so it's hard to get into. But
they have English accents.
yeah,
In
but
Australia and
yeah.
Canadian.
Uh, at some point they encounter this other culture that that's riding horses. They have like swords
Oh
and
wow.
they're carrying big banners with dye and all this stuff. And they mention they're like they tell them who they are, and they're like, we're the survivors of the past civilization. And these guys are the bad guys in the movie. So I
Mm,
was like, oh fuck,
that's
they're
cool.
still the bad guys.
When
That's
I
who.
when I hear
Yeah,
something like that, I'm like, I need to figure out who wrote this script. Who wrote this?
right.
This
I
is-
looked it up. I forget who it was, but I had the same thought. I was like, oh fuck, this guy knows something. Yeah.
I even watched, my daughter loves this movie, which I'm like, I feel like it's a good sign. But the old Disney Atlantis movie, she loves it.
Yeah,
And
dude.
I'm like,
Oh,
sometimes I'm watching it, I'm like, that's kind of interesting that they wrote it like this. Like who wrote
right.
this? Like someone was
Well, yeah,
into this.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, Walt Disney was a Freemason.
Right. Right. Right.
Freemasons have been in Hollywood and in the music industry for decades and decades. Not all of those guys are bad, but most of those guys know about the stuff that we're talking about. That was their mission. The Templars and the Freemasons, their purpose is to preserve this knowledge. And right now, their purpose is to disclose it because more people are ready.
It's just such a strange multi-generational mission to have. Like it's a weird mission because most organizations' missions devolve into some form of like self-enrichment.
Yep. Short-term gains.
Yeah,
You're not thinking about legacy at all. Yeah.
right.
That
But to
is what,
transmit information that won't help you
right.
thousands of years into the future is very fascinating.
Yeah. So I would say that's one thing that secret societies, good or bad, all have in common is they're playing the long game.
I got invited to come visit my local Masonic temple. Should I go?
Did you?
Should I?
Absolutely.
Some people told me
Uh,
some people told me I'm immediately going to go to hell. Other people told me I should infiltrate. Other people told me it's just a bunch of guys eating breakfast. Don't trip.
yeah. It's probably if that's what's that statistical mod diagram of like the triangle and you have different.
I just see you throwing up an Illuminati symbol. Are you talking about the
Yeah.
Trinity? Like it is this, it is that, it is not this. Is that what you're talking about?
No, just like there's a triangle here and there's
Yeah.
three different categories and you can go you if you're a point you can like go between them and you pull weight from each one.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
somewhere it's somewhere in between all those three things you just said. Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
No, yeah, it's actually really strange that
Well,
you would be
listen,
invited.
somewhere in between going immediately to hell and having breakfast with some good old boys, it's a pretty big, it's a pretty big spectrum you
Yeah.
just presented. It's
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen between those two things.
maybe not a risk I should take.
No, you should I think you should do it. I
All right,
just for the experience.
all right. I'm gonna record you in the pro column. Alfredo told me not to do it, but he he's
Wait, you're gonna record me what?
I'm putting you down in the pro column. You're telling me to go. I'm keeping a
Oh,
running
oh,
tally of
got it, got it, got
people
it.
saying don't do it, people saying do it.
Do you
Um,
like learning,
I love it, man. But you know who else loved knowledge?
Adam or Eve?
Well, yeah, you can say that. I was gonna say Lucifer, but but
Oh,
yeah, but Eve too. You're right. That's what got us in trouble, right?
yeah, Adam was like, no, don't. That's Alfredo.
Yep, yep, yep. That's Alfredo. Don't do it, but he did it. So I'll invite Alfredo. Maybe he'll come with me.
Okay,
Um.
good.
Anyway, man. Well, real quick before we wrap up the cough race stuff. So it sounds like you got a pretty good update with that. Sounds like you believe it to be pretty much authentic. I mean, maybe not some of the details and interpretations, but the data,
Right.
the imaging itself seems good.
Yes.
What the hell do we do
The
with that? What do we do with that knowledge that there's mile deep shafts underneath the pyramids?
uh,
How do I incorporate that into my understanding of the world?
well, if you watch Mark Young's presentation, you'll know that you'll be going through a crisis. There's a
Okay.
scientific crisis
Yep.
occurring right now.
Yep. Yep.
The next event between crisis and it is the paradigm shift. We're approaching.
Mm,
We are living in the death throes of the former paradigm right now.
nice.
It's they're thrashing about and spatting and doing all this stuff, and everyone is at the same time. It's a fight. It's a fight for change, and it's a fight for survival at the same time. And may the best man win.
Now, obviously, we believe the pyramids to be very old. Do we believe them to go back to the primeval pre-diluvian time?
Well, we can make some deductions, right? We know pretty much for a fact that nobody between now and 2500 BC was capable of doing anything like this.
Right.
So that's out for one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number two, we know for a fact that nobody between 2500 BC and 10,000 BC, 9600 BC was able to do anything like this. That's even a further stretch.
Sounds reasonable to me. Yeah.
What are you
Moving.
left with?
Yeah.
Aliens or pre-Diluvian high civilization that was wiped off or is has broken away onto the moon or down below the earth or something, right?
Yeah. My money's on pre-Diluvian civilization, but it's just hard to believe that the Giza Plateau wouldn't be that civilization's capital city, you know? But
Well, I can tell you why it might have been. Um, it is the conjunction of the two largest land masses in the world. It is, if you will, the Earth's center of gravity. So, one of Nightingale's theories about what this thing could have been is some kind of technology that was built to stabilize the Earth so that with
mm,
some kind of magnetic incursion, they could turn this thing on and almost like I'm just imagining like a gyroscope or some huge
yeah,
mega
yeah.
magnet down there and prevent the crust from slipping or the poles from flipping or whatever. If there's anything like that going on, that could be it.
If that, if that image, if that scan is real, which it seems like it might be, at that point, anything's on the table, man.
Yeah, dude.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything is on the
Yeah.
table. Do you remember? I mean, this was the big joke, that meme of the pyramids being the tip of an obelisk that goes down like miles into the earth. Have you seen that?
Mhm. No,
Like,
I've seen the ones with the moai like popping out at the
yeah.
on the other part of the planet though.
So just like that. So there used to be a
Yeah.
meme of the pyramids being the top of these giant obelisks. And it's just so
Right.
funny because that's like almost what, like it was a
Right.
joke, but that's like almost
Yeah.
what ended up being true, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
wow.
the best humor is true. So,
Well, okay. So in that case, you can think about like some of our, not, oops, I hit my microphone. Some of our most amazing cities in America aren't our capital city. Like New York City is not the capital of America.
mhm.
But also, if it's more of a technologies are built in purpose specific locations, like, so it's totally reasonable that we could have this amazing complex in modern day Giza that was not the capital of this ancient empire.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I have a modern analog to that. My company is currently building the the chamber that the Fermilab collider is going to be placed in. So there's a neutrino
So we
emitter
we have you to thank for the coming Armageddon.
potentially. Yeah, we might have had a hand in it. Um, they have this emitter, I believe it's in Chicago or in Illinois somewhere, and the thing that we're building is the detector. It's in North Dakota. So
Mm,
these two devices connect to each other by shooting particles through the earth
nice.
that are unimpeded by frequencies and interference and stuff. And they chose this section because of the type of geology that's between them, the type of rock that's between these two locations is such that it would allow a more unimpeded or pure signal to be recorded,
Are your
if you catch
paychecks just signed by like a lizard paw dipped in ink? Pressed under your check?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, but in all seriousness, though, I hear you talking about this shooting neutrinos through the earth, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But then I think like, man, the pyramid, whatever the pyramids are, could have been something so much cooler. And it's like, how did we not get back to that? And I can't help but wonder, to your point earlier, this is now we're just why this is out of control. Just completely, we're just
Yes.
wildly speculative, of course.
Well, we can talk about JP Morgan again, and it would make sense.
Well, I was gonna say it's like it's almost like perhaps those remnants that survived are there's some type of intentionality behind this, that maybe guiding certain aspects of technological development where we never really re-achieved those things for some reason. Because I mean, this with the limited amount of stuff we know about these ancient people, they were really dialed into the stars. And
Yep.
now with what we're seeing under the pyramids and stuff, maybe so much more, who knows? So anyway, not to sound like a raving
Yep.
lunatic, but that is incredibly exciting. Thank
No,
you for
man.
sharing it with us.
Yeah, you're not a lunatic. I don't think I am either. I just have seen enough of the dots and I'm not an idiot, so it's pretty easy to put them together.
You almost can't use the word anymore, lunatic, when we start seeing like this Coffrey stuff and now this Atlantis stuff that you're sharing with us today. It's like, I
Yeah.
think we all just need to take that, whatever that just part of us that just wants to be right and rational and not like is embarrassed to
Yeah.
think crazy ideas. Like we got to really
Right.
shove that in the box. It's
Yeah, I don't want to be right. I just want to know.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
You don't need credit. You just want to know the answers. Well, man, that's probably a great way to end this. Is there anything you want to
Sure.
close with? You good?
I mean, there's so much more that we could discuss, the vases that from the pre-dynastic vases that Matt Bell brought, just fucking phenomenal. The findings at Gunung Padang, the artifacts that they brought back that are just totally mind-blowing, made of meteorite iron and were pulled out of the Java Sea and look like Atlantean artifacts. They look like, I mean, there's like giant weapons made of meteorite iron that
No
they
way.
found.
That's
Oh
sick.
yeah, dude. I mean, I'll send you the pictures, but we got to hold some of these things, and the one of the rings is this big around,
Wow.
a good three times the size of my finger.
What do you mean rings? Like
There's
jewelry?
a ring. There's a yeah, like some kind of
Bro.
ring. It looks like a Green Lantern ring, but it's made of meteorite iron.
Dude, you found Goliath's uncle's wedding band.
Very likely, man. Very likely. Here, I'll
That's insane.
before we jump
Yeah, let's
off, I'll
let's
show
end
you a
with
little
this
taste.
incredible find.
See that?
Wow. It's a third of a pound.
Yeah,
Man,
it
that
was
could be
heavy.
any number of things.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking it's possible that it's like something that goes around a pole, and once you see the other pictures, you'll understand why.
Where
But
did where did they find this?
in the Java Sea,
Oh wow.
so there's this giant lantern necklace thing, and then
Oh,
there's the Ouroboros armband right
and this
there.
is this is iron from meteorites. Look at
Yeah,
that.
that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Look at that.
And that thing's huge too. That's like twice the size of my arm, which
Remind me, Aura Bora or something. What is it? Aura Borealis.
Ora- Ouroboros or I call it Ouroboros.
That's pretty insane, man. Wow.
That's Danny Hillman.
Look at that.
It's magnetic.
Dude, that's Poseidon's freaking meteor sword. Holy
I
cow.
think so. I think this one is a harpoon. Look, there's the trident.
Shut up. That's a prop from a movie. That's a prop from
I
Aquaman.
swear, dude,
That's
it looks
Aquaman
like a
2.
prop. I know. It looks fake, doesn't it? But look at this. This is a glaive. This is a one-handed glaive. You
Good
think who
Lord.
could wield? I mean, these things are heavy.
That's got to be, yeah, I was going to say, it's got to be insanely heavy.
This is
What
like
the?
I don't know what this is.
It looks like a bottle opener for the biggest bottle of beer ever made.
Yeah,
Wow. Man, you saved some cool stuff for the end. Holy cow.
right.
Dude, this looks like it's from Asgard. Like this is
Yeah.
from
Look at this. Look at this crown.
Dude, mighty men of renown, man.
Fit for a G word.
God,
Yeah, and it's
I'm
very
like
rough,
stunned. I'm like stunned by
right?
that. That's incredible.
I know it's nuts. It's very rough too. It's like
We,
I don't know the story on it, but
we have no way of knowing the age. Like, there's no, is there a mainstream?
no, this is like fresh. This is a fresh discovery. This has not been written about. You're kind of getting it's circulating now that the summit's over with, but they were sharing these pictures and
Who found it?
um don't know exactly, but I'm assuming what I think probably happened was some fishermen or some whoever random people discovered a cache of these things somewhere in the ocean and sold them to whoever this guy is that's got all of these, I mean, like Dragon Ball Z figurines and space shuttles and Buddha and fucking all this other random shit back here. So it kind of delegitimizes it a little bit, where it makes you
Yeah,
think, oh, this is a workshop where they're making fake artifacts.
that
But
is my suspicion. Of course, yes.
yeah, yeah. So of course there is if this stuff must be authenticated with lab testing and like some kind of official report. But one thing that I can't ignore is the degradation of it
Yeah.
and hitting. And so iron nickel meteorites, they don't rust that easily. But if something is in the sea for 12,000 years, it's going to rust a bit. So I think whoever found this stuff probably got it and sandblasted it and cleaned it up. They shouldn't have done that, but I can't imagine they would exactly know better. Um,
Yeah, that
but
makes sense.
if it's true that this stuff is made of the same things that these are, I mean, I physically handled these. I've
Yeah.
never felt anything like it. It was out of this world bizarre. I mean, it like you said, it was like some Asgardian shit. Um, I can't imagine though that if this is the same stuff, if it's made out of this, I've never seen
Yeah.
any manufacturing process that makes anything that looks like this. The it's too dark to see, but one thing I keep stressing to people when I talk about it is the cross section here
Mhm.
looks unlike any other cross section of the interior of a metal object that I've ever seen. The forging or the casting or whatever process that made this stuff is like alien, in quote unquote alien.
Wow.
So yeah, no idea.
Man, that's fascinating. Well, what a way to end our talk.
Right?
Holy cow. Well, please come back when you find out more information about this. I'd love to hear it. Congrats
Yeah.
on being one of the first to share the new information that Atlantis has been discovered. Thanks for thinking of us on your way back from Cosmic Summit.
Yep.
Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
And is there anything you want to plug?
Plug. I would just say the Azores tour, I guess, is uh-oh. Am I still there?
I hear you.
Okay. Zoom is like crashing right now. Azores tour, there might be a few more spots. Um, I don't know, don't be a dick.
Okay.
Um,
Easier said than done for some of us, but
yeah, the
don't
Cosmic
be a
Summit
dick.
was great. George and the team, they did a phenomenal job. It's going to be even better next year. Um, I
Where
owe
can people
everything to
follow
my
you? Are you share you're becoming you might as well just embrace your new media persona and start sharing social media with people soon.
Yeah, I probably should. I don't know, I'm mainly just like bopping around Discords and Telegrams at the moment, but
Yeah.
when I get to the point where
We'll plug that. Come check out Young Cheese on the Brothers of the Serpent Discord server
yeah,
if you
I
can
need
ask
to
that
be
questions.
I need to be more active there, but I will absolutely engage with anybody on Discord or Telegram or um I have a YouTube channel, but I have like one or two videos on there that aren't even really much of anything. But
People can even
yeah, more to
email
come.
me. People can even email me and I'll get a hold of Nick to have him answer your question. So, all right, man.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Stick around for a second so I can say bye officially, but
Okay.
we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Good night, everyone.